Hello and welcome to the Stack Exchange, where we cast our thoughts and let our arguments resolve. I'm your host, Tristan.
And I'm your co-host, Tyler.
The topic of this video is going to be centered around the huge rules changes coming to Commander. At MagicCon Vegas this last week, Wizards of the Coast announced that they will now be allowing legendary vehicles to be your commander. Not only that, but with Edge of Eternities set to release in August, they have announced that any legendary permanent with the power and toughness will be able to be your commander.
So what does this mean for the Commander format? Well, for starters, this opens the doors to a whole new design space for Commanders. As we've already seen, we have Shorakai, who is a legendary artifact vehicle that has this can be a Commander kind of stapled onto it. But this allows for other legendary artifact vehicles that have already been released to be your commander, and it also means that we will likely be getting more legendary vehicles so that they can be commanders. There's also the talk about the spaceships coming from Edge of Eternities, which are a vehicle variant, and those will now be able to be your commander.
I also want to point out that this opens up like a really cool design space for Wizards of the Coast to be able to create new permanents that have power and toughness that can be your commander. I think it was Maldhound who mentioned that there's maybe like some universes beyond coming with Star Wars or some sort of spaceships, and they want that to be your commander. I think that's a really cool idea, and they're kind of, setting up future sets as well with this new design change.
We also may start to see some other permanents with power and toughness stapled that get animated in a way like vehicles and spaceships will. Maybe we'll start getting some just plain enchants that get converted into creatures. Hell, maybe even a land at some point, which I think would be really cool to see. With this change, other forms of removal other than just creature removal may see a rise in usage. For instance, if people are using certain artifacts or maybe a later date like enchants as their commander, we may see a rise in removal for those kinds of permanents now that other things than just creatures specifically can be your commander.
Yeah, I think different types of removal are going to definitely start cropping up. Maybe it also opens a design space for different kinds of removal to be printed, stuff we haven't seen before. Overall, I think that this is a really great change with a ton of potential for future design, like introducing enchantments that could be commanders, as Tyler already mentioned. Obviously, we just got the Saga creatures for the first time, and currently none of them have legendary printings, but according to this rules change, if any of them became legendary, they do have that power and toughness box, which would make them eligible to be your commander as long as they're legendary. I think there's a ton of opportunities here. It's really cool.
Yeah, like Tristan was saying, I'm a big fan of this change as well. I think it's going to be good for the format. I've always been a vehicles fan. Back when I was younger and playing some like kitchen table standard, I ran a vehicles deck. So vehicles kind of have a soft spot in my heart. So I love to see this change. And vehicles aside, some of the spoilers for what spaceships are going to be like in the upcoming set, I think is really cool. So I'm excited to see those. And with these new changes, being able to run those as commanders, I think will be very cool.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with Tyler on this point. I also think where I'm coming at it from is like if someone were to sit across from me, like at a commander game night, and have a vehicle in their command zone and ask to rule zero it, I don't think I'd ever be opposed to that. And so I'm excited to see it as like an official rules change where people can kind of, explore like this new creative space with having new commanders. It kind of opens up a ton of new commanders and some different synergies too, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So let's get into what kind of commanders we would like to build with this new rules change, because I'm sure there's a number of people who are interested in looking into the different types of legendary vehicles that they can now use to play. So we wanted to give our thoughts on which we might build.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is quite a limited area right now. We only have a set amount of legendary vehicles that you actually could use as your commander currently with this rules change. Obviously, I expect that Wizards of the Coast will be creating a ton more with having them as your commander in mind. But these are just some examples of what we see right now that we're looking forward to building, maybe getting a deck list together for just to have some fun, try out this new rules change. Okay, so I'll just start us off. The first card that came to mind when I thought of this rules change was the Belligerent. Just to give some context, it is a 2 red and blue for a 5/5 legendary artifact vehicle that reads, whenever the Belligerent attacks, create a treasure token. Until end of turn, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. And it has crew 3. So I think that obviously the really easy way to build this is just Is It Storm. You're going to be getting access to the top card of your library, and you're also going to be creating just a little bit of mana when you attack with that, getting that treasure token. Also, for additional synergy, you can run prowess-focused creatures that will actually trigger when your commander enters, because it is being cast from the command zone as a vehicle artifact, not a creature. You have to crew it for it to become a creature. So your prowess guys will see the non-creature being cast and get the +1/+1. Super interesting synergy there. I mean, obviously it's not going to play a huge role, but it's something. You can also do something similar to this Spellslinger archetype in mono blue with the new Lunar Whale vehicle from Final Fantasy. While you lose red, you do get a very similar effect to the Belligerent, and this card has flying and only needs to crew 1. So you're going to be able to crew it faster and get in with the flying evasion. I think it's going to be easier to swing in with the evasion stapled onto it, so maybe it's worth it to drop the color and try the same archetype, but in mono blue. And then the other vehicle I was looking into building is the Falcon Airship Restored from Final Fantasy as well. They actually have some really cool legendary vehicles coming in this one, but it's just recursion in the command zone, and you can get it back with its second ability just stapled on there. So it is its own engine in a way where you're going to be able to recur something and then get it back from the graveyard. Just real quick, I'll read what this card does. So whenever the Falcon deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it, and when you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is recursion going straight onto the battlefield. I could already see this in like a sacrifice theme with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, just every combat draining people for your mono black devotion. Obviously you're in mono black, so the devotion is going to be easy to hit. Also, it has flying stapled onto it, so again, getting in there with the evasion, it's going to be really easy, and it's just hard to resist having the recursion in your command zone because it's going to be extra resilient to graveyard hate. You can let it sit in your graveyard, and the second someone tries to exile it, just throw it back into your command zone. This could be a really interesting build around, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Falcon's a very cool just vehicle in general, and I think it opens a really cool building strategy. I also thought of the Belligerent as one of the first cards when I saw this rule change, and that's probably because I've put it in a couple of decks previously. There are quite a few vehicles that I would like to build as commander. These include Eska's Chariot, Golden Argosy, Parhelion 2, and the Sky Sovereign flagship. There are others, but these are the main ones. Tristan covered some of the other ones I thought about. Recently, I've been wanting to try out a populate-based deck with tokens and whatnot, and I think Eska's Chariot could end up being that deck. Since, I'll read this out, Eska's Chariot is 3 and a green, and when it attacks, it creates a token that is a copy of target token you control. It's a 4/4 with crew 4, but it also has, when it enters, create 2/2/2 green cat creature tokens. So not only does it have this like pseudo populate effect, it also turns itself on because it enters and makes the tokens to crew itself. And I think that's a really cool just addition, and I think it could be a really fun card to play with. You're in green, so you're going to be getting them out quicker than turn 4 when you would typically have the mana for it. I have this card, it's in one of the Bloomborough precons that I've played a couple of times, and it's just a very fun card. To touch lightly on it, Golden Argosy is another card that I think could be interesting in like a Flickers deck. It's when it attacks, you can exile each creature that crewed it this turn, then return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's not like the best Flicker, but I think it could be an interesting deck to run. On top of that, it's 4-cost colorless, so you'd have to figure out how to do like flicker effects in colorless, which isn't impossible. and it's a 3/6, so it's a sizable body. It's not like any insane things. I don't think it's going to be an amazing commander, but I think it could be interesting to build around, trying to do this like colorless flicker. And the last two I wanted to talk about are Parhelion 2 and Sky Sovereign Console Flagship. These are both in that kitchen table standard deck I mentioned, so I have a soft spot for both of them. Parhelion 2 is a really good just vehicle in general. It is 8 cost, so it's kind of expensive, but it's a 5/5 with crew 4, flying, first strike, and vigilance. On top of that, when it attacks, it makes 2 4/4 angel creature tokens that have flying and vigilance and are attacking. So not only does it make tokens that are attacking, there's some pretty good tokens. They have flying vigilance in their 4/4s. On top of that, after the first one of those tokens can crew Parhelion. So it kind of turns itself on as well. Not the first time, but it has a lot of good keywords on it. It's a card I really enjoyed running in that deck, and I think it'll be really fun to build around. And the other card, the Flagship, it's just kind of fun. I enjoyed it because it's essentially gives you a lightning bolt every turn. It's 5 cost, 6/5 with crew 3. It has flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. In our little kitchen table standard games, it was really good for clearing out random blockers or creatures your opponents controlled. It's just a nice little piece of utility to be able to ping down all of your opponent's weak stuff. And I think it'll also be fun to build. The fact that it is colorless is a bit of a restriction, but I'm foreseeing that Wizards will start printing more vehicles with colors on them now that they can be commanders. So I'm excited to see what they will be doing in the future.
Yeah, no, I think those are awesome commanders, Tyler. One thing I noticed about some of these best ones, and something that I think we already see in the commander format in general, is that with these new vehicles, people are probably going to lean heavily into stuff that kind of is its own engine and gets itself going by itself. Cards like Prosper Tomebound are a really good example of this. Not only does it give you a payoff for playing cards from exile, but it exiles the card for you. So a vehicle commander that comes in and then gives you a body to crew itself with, I think is just going to be really good and something that people are looking for, obviously, in some of these decks. So all in all, these are just some of our thoughts on the new changes and some cards that we look forward to running. Obviously, I am certain that Edge of Eternities will bring more legendary vehicles to helm your commander decks. And of course, expect some videos and deck techs on those to come in the future.
As always, thank you for watching. If you have any commanders that you guys would like to build with these new changes, if there were any vehicles that stuck out to you, feel free to drop them in the comments below. We'd be happy to read your ideas. I think this is an awesome change, so I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. But that's all we have for you today, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.